From death, road to power. Imagine this. A 32-year-old military officer is sitting inside a prison cell. He has been arrested. He has been court-martialed. And he has been sentenced to death. His name? Flight Lieutenant Jerry John Rawlings. But history was about to take a dramatic turn. May 15, 1979. Rawlings and a group of junior military officers attempted to overthrow Ghana's military government, led by General Fred Akufo. The coup failed. Rawlings was captured, tried by a military court, and sentenced to death. He was now a condemned man, waiting behind prison walls. Then came June 4, 1979. Junior military officers launched another uprising. They stormed the prison and freed Rawlings. Within hours, the situation had completely changed. The man who had been sentenced to death was now one of the most powerful figures in Ghana. The government of General Fred Akufo collapsed, and the Armed Forces Revolutionary Council, known as the AFRC, took control. Rawlings became its chairman. Then came with a new regime called house cleaning. Ghana was facing severe economic hardship. Corruption, black market activities, and profiteering had become widespread. The word calabule had become part of everyday Ghanaian vocabulary. Ordinary citizens were struggling, while powerful and connected individuals were accused of enriching themselves. Rawlings and the AFRC promised to put an end to it. Senior military officers and former leaders were arrested. Revolutionary tribunals were established. And then, the executions began. Among those condemned were three men who had each played major roles in Ghana's turbulent history. General Ignatius Kutu Acheampong, General Akwasi Amankwa Afrifa, and General Fred Akufo. These were not ordinary soldiers. They were former rulers of Ghana, men who had themselves risen to power through military coups. On June 16, 1979, Acheampong and Major General Edward Kwaku Utuka were executed. Then, on June 26th, Fred Akufo, Akwasi Afrifa, and other senior officers were executed by firing squad at the Teshi military range in Accra. The AFRC described the executions as accountability, a punishment for corruption and abuse of power. Many ordinary Ghanaians, frustrated by economic hardship and corruption, welcomed the crackdown. But another question remained. Was this justice? Or was it simply another form of military violence? There were no ordinary civilian courts. There was no normal appeals process. Soldiers were judging soldiers, and the ultimate punishment was death. Then, remarkably, Rawlings handed power back to civilians. On September 24, 1979, Ghana returned to civilian rule under President Hilla Limann. For a moment, it appeared that Rawlings' revolution was over. But history wasn't finished with him. On December 31, 1981, Rawlings returned. He overthrew President Limann and established the Provisional National Defense Council. This time, he would remain at the center of Ghanaian politics for many years. Eventually, Rawlings transformed himself from military ruler into an elected civilian president, and Ghana would later become one of Africa's strongest examples of sustained constitutional democracy. But the events of 1979 remain controversial, because Ghana's history raises a difficult question. What happens when a nation tries to fight corruption without the rule of law? Can justice become revenge? Can a revolution against military abuse simply replace one group of men with guns with another? And perhaps the most haunting question of all, when the cure for military corruption is more military violence, who really wins? History does not always give us simple heroes and villains. Sometimes, it gives us difficult questions, and Ghana's turbulent journey in 1979 is one of them.